Here I go again on my own. I'm sorry. Laura's not here to hold me back, to stop me from starting podcasts like this, so this is how it's happening. Reporter Dawn is back for duties. Basically, I'm up in Aberdeen holding the fort as Laura has been on her ADHDAF Day mission, making some big, brave moves in support of the ADHD community for ADHD Awareness Month. And so since we're at opposite ends of the country, we are essentially winging it so that we can get this episode out. We obviously could have recorded intros and outros in advance for the episode, but we want to keep you as up to date as possible. So it was important for us to make sure that we could update you with what happened yesterday during ADHD AF Day. So I'll be doing the intro to this episode and Laura will be taking you out at the other side. And please stay tuned and listen to the updates that Laura has. She has some really important information and messages to share with you all. And it's definitely worth listening to. But before we dive into this episode, I just want to say a huge thanks to everyone that's reached out after the big announcement on the bonus Blether episode that we released on Sunday. It wasn't an easy decision for me to hang up my podcasting, microphone. It's been really hard, but I know it's the right decision for me. And so, just a massive thank you to everybody for their support that supported me, that's supporting Laura, and that will continue to support Laura and the ADHD community going forward. I wouldn't be at this place in my life without all of your help and support. So I truly am eternally grateful. If you've not listened to the bonus episode, then please do, because it gives you a big insight as to what's been going on and why I've come to this decision. So massive thank you again. So as mentioned previously, we have a contact within our ADHDAF community who works for the NHS, and we have received another update with regards to the med shortages. And this is what they've said. Some better news today. We've been given access to a national pharmacy stock checker to help with our recommendations. Elvance 50 milligrams was in stock yesterday and was quickly used up. The system shows that 50 milligrams, 60 milligrams and 70 milligrams are now with Alliance, the pharmacy checker, but only 60s are showing as available at the moment. All of the doses will not be available consistently until the new year. But this is some hope that there are still Elvance capsules being manufactured and are dripping through the supply chain. It's not perfect, but it's something. I also think that because it's constantly moving, if you really persevere by phoning multiple pharmacies and possibly travelling a little, it's likely you'll be able to find it. So we're definitely not out of the woods yet, but there is hope and there is medication trickling through the system. Obviously, this is just an update for Elvance, but that's all we have at the moment. And obviously, we'll continue to keep you updated with information as and when we receive it. Finally, before we continue with this episode, I just want to say a huge thanks to Laura and to Ali and to everyone else who have supported on the socials and in person for ADHDAF Day. You're part of the solution. And we couldn't do this without you. So thank you all. I'm gutted I couldn't be with them myself. Absolutely gutted. But I had to be in uni. But I did go into uni head to toe in leopard print, as you will see from my photo that I put up on my socials. And I'm just very proud of Laura for everything that she's done with this campaign and what she's doing for the ADHD community as a whole. Could not be prouder. But speaking of ADHD Awareness Month, this episode that we're about to embark on with our guest Kate Moryoussef is a special. We have done a collaboration. We interviewed Kate for our podcast and Kate has interviewed us for her podcast, which I believe will be out on Thursday, the 26th of October. So if you've not heard of Kate, you've probably been hiding under a rock. So pull yourself from out under that rock, give yourself a dust off, and then you need to check out the ADHD Women's Wellbeing podcast. Kate is a UK-based wellbeing and lifestyle coach who has ADHD and is a mum to 4 kids. She's a busy lady. But she made time in her busy schedule to do a podcast swap with us, and we are very excited to share it with you. So please, please enjoy. And before I go, quickly, my most ADHD thing is the fact that I have 7 minutes to get across town for the brief of my new project for uni, because I'm editing this up until the final crunch. So I have to run. Love you, love you, love you. Bye, bye, bye. Enjoy this episode.
ADHDs females, ADHDAF. ADHDs females, the podcast.
We did it for the acronym.
Hi, I'm Dawn.
Hi, I'm Laura, and we
are
ADHD
AF.
AF. Seriously.
Well, that feels like a lifetime ago.
Doesn't it just?
Since that recording in May 2022, we have been on quite the safari.
Mm-hmm.
We moved to the same street at the same time, at the same age, with the same undiagnosed neurodevelopmental condition. But despite all of the serendipity and the similarities, our ADHD presents completely differently from each other. But make no mistake, it is equally debilitating for us both.
Over the course of season 1, we used our voices to raise awareness, break the stigma, and share our experiences in the hope that they help others. And unbelievably, it worked, leading us to help listeners in almost every country in the world and creating ADHDAF live events and an online peer support community, for all of which we're so very grateful. Despite all that, we're still just two rebels with a cause, having a blether from a tiny village on the beach in Aberdeen, Scotland. Two pieces of sea glass washed up on the same shore.
Trigger warning. We cover some triggering topics, so please read the description of each episode before listening. We're not medical professionals, therapists or coaches. We're not qualified or even emotionally equipped to offer advice or support. We're only experts by our own experiences, which we share alongside what we discover in these crucial conversations to raise essential ADHD awareness amidst a global crisis. We won't always get it right. We will talk over each other and forget the point mid-sentence. As we continue to unmask, we're attempting to unashamedly own our own too muchness.
We wear leopard print to our events because the leopard is a symbol of Aberdeen. It also symbolises bravery, courage, and the reclaiming of power. Plus, we're a little bit Han.
Yeah.
So that's why it's become the uniform of our leopard print army, our own special camouflage to unite the community.
We're called ADHD as females purely for the acronym ADHDAF. Get it? Because we both have a juvenile sense of humour.
And we swear like sailors. Sorry, mums. And of course, we're ADHD as...
Anyway, this is an inclusive space where all genders are so very welcome.
Yes, they are. So join us as we continue to make some serious noise about this misunderstood condition to help others like us alongside raising awareness with a hope to influence systemic change so that those in need can be treated both medically and with the respect they deserve. We continue on this safari because hell hath no fury like two late diagnosed ADHD women.
ADHDs females, the podcast.
Can you tell us your name, please?
Yes, it's Kate Moryoussef,
Your location?
Manchester.
Occupation?
Interesting. It changes all the time, but I'm a podcast host of the ADHD Women's Wellbeing podcast. I'm a wellbeing coach, EFT practitioner for women who are late diagnosed ADHD.
Amazing.
And your diagnosis status?
Diagnosed 3 years ago.
And was it early or late? Did
yeah.
I just ask that question after you just told me the answer? Was it easy or traumatic?
It was actually quite easy at the time. I feel very lucky to say that. But maybe the processing was a bit traumatic.
Yes, absolutely. Would you say you're a can't start or can't stop person?
Oh, God. Very much depends on the task. Can't stop when I'm in like super hyper focus mode, like writing content. Can't start when it's my bloody insurance documents, which are sat there giving me like fear, which I've still not done.
I hear that.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Are you a can't sleep or a can't get up person?
Well, I have curated a whole sleep program, which includes sprays, earplugs, drops, like pillowcases. So now I can sleep really well if I have all my essentials. And I do love my bed. I'm not a morning person. My husband is, thank God. He's like 5 o'clock in the morning, bounces out of bed. And so that is very helpful for me.
Yeah, good. Over emotional or impassive?
Oh, totally depends. I would cry at, oh my God, like my new favorite program, which I would like binged, Your Mum, My Dad, or My Mum, Your Dad.
Oh, I want to watch that.
Yeah, I've been hearing lots
I
about
literally
it.
sobbed my way through that. But then impassive, when something quite big happens and I'm like, oh, this is a bit weird. Why am I, reacting? So strange emotions, but hopefully like, I don't know. I was going to say normal, but there's no such thing. So,
I guess what came to my mind is in that, like, if it's something important, then you need to take the time to process it.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
for the pandemic, everyone was freaking out and I was like cool as a cucumber. And then if I like make a diary like mismanagement, or I realize I've done something with my diary, I'm like freak out and like overwhelm and I cancel everything. So yeah, maybe just kind of I react in different ways to different things.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And do you prefer texting or talking?
Texting, of course.
Books or audiobooks?
I'm just delving into audiobooks because I love listening to podcasts. So I walk my dog every day and that's when I listen to podcasts. And then the audiobook, I've done it a couple of times on long journeys, but most of the time I do like to read before bed.
Mm-hmm.
And you prefer going out or staying in?
It really depends who with. If I'm going out with people I really, really like, then definitely. I'm not a big drinker really, so I don't love staying out like past 11. So I'm like, by 11, I'm like done. But I love staying in. Oh my God. I love a plan when it's cancelled.
Cats or dogs?
Say that again, sorry.
Cats or dogs? We already know the
Oh,
answer.
dogs.
but-
Dogs.
Yeah. And what is your current hyper focus?
Probably work, I would say, just in general, like bringing out new workshops, the hormone series, the ADHD hormone series, which has been like a massive hyper focus all year, really. I'm really, really passionate about that, like bringing awareness and advocacy for women to understand their hormones alongside their neurodivergence. So I have got a tendency to overwork. I would say sometimes there's a tip over into workaholism. So I'm always kind of trying to bring that back. And I guess burnout is something that I talk about a lot. So I'm very conscious about breaking and shutting my laptop and putting my phone away, because otherwise it can get a bit much for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much relate.
It's easy to give out the advice to other people, but not so easy to take it on board
I have to go
yourself.
back and listen to my own advice.
Yeah.
I did have a point there.
Yeah, absolutely. So the question is, what got you here? I would like to start by just saying that we're super grateful to have you here, collaborating with us as part of the ADHD community in ADHD Awareness Month.
Yeah.
And it's quite funny. I feel like, I'm going to be honest with you, I feel like this probably should have happened quite a long time ago. But the truth is, I was too scared to ask you because, no, honestly, because, and this is, I think it's a really important point to make, like how we see ourselves and how we perceive other people, right? So the pair of us, we're just like, well
we
wrong
feel-
ends.
Yeah, we feel like a bunch of Wallies.
Yeah, we're like teenagers. Even though we're both 40, we think we're teenagers. So we would look at you. You'd already started. You've got this amazing platform. You're doing all of this incredible stuff, amazing podcast. And we're like, she's a grown-up. We can't bother her. Like, we don't. And I think that's the point, is that like, we bash home all the time that ADHD presents differently in every single person.
Yeah.
But the point is that we are a community. We are actually, for all our differences, we are all the same.
Yeah,
and the point is, we have to support each other. We have to all be in it together.
We're all playing
because
for the
we're up
same
against
team.
it. Outside of it, we have
Definitely.
to unite. So thank you so much for joining us and coming
Oh
on
my
to talk to
goodness.
two
I mean,
Wallies.
likewise. Well, first of all, you're not Wallies, because what you've done is incredible and you've got the most amazing platform. And I love reading your posts and listening to you and what you've created. And I love your brand, like how you've kind of like brought ADHD to so many different people. And I just think, like, if we're all in it together, like you say, we like the collaboration, and one person may relate to one episode of yours and one episode of mine.
Exactly.
And, I mean, the fact that we've only just met and we're already having a laugh, that just shows how, like, when you meet another ADHD person, it's like, okay, I get you. You're part of my tribe.
Exactly.
And so we just have to all just support each other and help each other, because it's been a bit of a slog for so many of us.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
We are literally like-minded, literally.
Yeah.
So, how did you, what the question really is how did you discover ADHD or make the connection? So you said it was 3 years ago you got diagnosed. Do you mind telling us your age?
Yeah. So I'm 43. So I was 40 when I was diagnosed. And that was because, obviously, we were in the depths of the pandemic. And I was homeschooling one of my kids, who at the time was about 9. 9. And I already knew that there was something going on there for her. I already knew that there was like what I had kind of seen as like dyslexia, dyspraxia.
Yeah.
But what's ridiculous is that I've got ADHD in my family. My brothers were diagnosed as kids. So that's like back in the very early 90s.
Yeah.
It's literally all I've ever known is ADHD in boys. And it's just never been discussed. I like never discussed that ADHD could be in girls. But as I was very impatiently trying to homeschool my daughter, it was triggering lots of things in me as well, because I could see that she couldn't sit still, she couldn't focus. Maths was so difficult, comprehensions. She wouldn't sit on a chair. She was rolling around on the floor. It was just like I was watching her go, I get what is going on here,
Yes.
but I've got to homeschool 3 other kids.
Yeah.
And I have no patience, like anything to do with this. I just had, I was blowing my top. So my emotional regulation, my intolerance was just, all over the place. Anyway, so I started researching. And it just straight away came up as like ADHD symptoms in girls. But she was also incredibly sweet and quiet and funny and like not disruptive and never like blurted out. And she's just like a bit like me as I was a kid, sort of dancing around, like head in the sky and sort of twirling around the garden. And I was like, that's what I used to do. But my brothers were quite disruptive. They would shout out. They had behavioural problems. My older brother got kicked out of loads of schools. For me, the ADHD was off because it just wasn't what I could see presenting in my brothers, who were, I think they won't mind me saying this, they were pretty hard to manage from like my parents' perspective, but also in school as well. Anyway, I decided to pursue a diagnosis, and I thought, this is what I've got as well. And so we were both diagnosed within 2 weeks of each other.
Oh, wow.
And I've got like these really strong memories of walking, obviously we had nothing else to do during the pandemic, walking the dog. And we both had an AirPod in each ear, and we'd listen to this podcast called, I always like to reference it because she really did change our life, called Journey With Me with ADHD. And I can't remember the name of the host, annoyingly. And it was all geared towards kids, understanding their ADHD brain. And it was explained so beautifully in like 10-minute episodes. And she kept saying to me, this is what I do, Mum. This is what I do. Like, she was like, oh my God. And because it was so easy to process and understand, I was like, I did that. So we kind of bonded. And then obviously, like, because I've got 4 kids, the diagnoses just kept going. So we've kind of got like a full house, and my husband, bless him at the time, was just like, what the, can I swear?
Of course, your head off, go for
like,
it.
What the fuck is going on? We thought we had kind of just like a relatively normal house. He thought he'd escaped this ADHD gene in my family. He was like, our kids are fine. I was like, and we've had quite a few diagnoses in the family now. And my husband has taken a while to come on board. He was very much of that school of thought of, stop labeling, like stop trying to find things.
Yeah.
She'll be fine. And I was saying, I would have wanted this support. Like I would have needed this support if someone had said to me, and then I went back and looked at all my reports, and it was all, if Kate focused more, if Kate handed her homework in time, if Kate stopped chatting in class, if only Kate da-da-da-da. And I looked through my whole academia, and I scraped through uni with a 2-2. And, I like to believe that I'm quite an intelligent person, but it wasn't reflective in my grades.
Yeah.
Like I just always scraped through. And so I would want my kids to get the support that they need to get through so they can really achieve and do well.
And that can change everything. That support can change everything. A person's life can be completely different. I know that my life would be completely different had I had the support in place
100%.
when I was younger.
Because it's about the value, the self-worth.
Yeah.
as well as the actual achievement, it's how you perceive yourself in the world, you know? It means everything.
Totally.
And that's so moving. It's like, can we just take a moment for the power of a podcast?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And it's like the other thing that I picked up from that is the image that everyone has of what ADHD is. Like, that's what we need to do. That's what this whole awareness thing about. It's changing that perception that people have, changing the image, changing the face of what ADHD looks like, what people think ADHD is, because
oh my God, totally.
It's so
it
different
blows
across
me
the
away.
board.
Yeah.
It blows me away every time because when I see my clients, they are from all walks of life. But it basically just like breaks that whole kind of stigma of, oh, well, how can you have ADHD because you're, you know, successful or you're educated or you run a family? You know, I literally just had a GP who runs a practice, and, you know, she was dismissed and invalidated. You know, she managed to get through medical school, but she kept having to retake her exams. And everyone was like, I don't understand. You're an incredible doctor. You know your stuff. But she learned practically. But when she had to sit down and do her exams, it just didn't process with her. And, you know, at the age of sort of 40, 42, she got her diagnosis after seeing patients coming in. So it was, I mean, how ridiculous is that? A GP is learning from her patients that potentially she's got, you know, this thing. And now she's having to process all of this and, you know, help herself and understand that she had this self-worth thing of why is everyone doing so much better in exams? You know, I know I'm a good doctor. I don't understand. It makes no sense. But no one flagged it up. No one, not one, you know, lecturer, not one doctor said, you know, have you looked into perhaps that maybe you've got like a learning difference, which obviously wouldn't have been called that then. So we are so on the back foot, like women. It is, you know, I know it's sort of bandied around this term, this lost generation, but it really is, you know, our age and plus, you know, I have women messaging me in their 70s, and I've had so many doctors as clients, and lawyers and accountants and people who are just getting their diagnoses. And there's like relief, but so much grief as well.
Grief.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. It's funny because it sort of made me think. So we spoke to Dr. Nigat Arif, and she was talking about how we're copers, like women are copers, and the coping strategy. She's got dyslexia, hasn't she? And so she's gone through her whole career as a training to be a GP with kind of putting in these coping strategies without ever really knowing, you know, the extent of it. And she has other colleagues the same in the medical profession that are finding out that they're neurodiverse. And we've just kind of coped all these coping strategies to just get through.
So yeah, we kind of touched on the grief there from not having a diagnosis until later. So where do you feel you're at along that grief cycle? We call it the ADHD late diagnosis roller coaster because it's not linear.
And turning.
Yeah. So obviously I went into, as soon as I got diagnosed, I went straight into hyperfocus, joined every Facebook group there was, read every article, bought like a gazillion books on Amazon, and proceeded to totally hyperfocus and like almost obsess over understanding ADHD in women. And it was really sad. It was really like hard. And then I went straight into wanting to help because I was already coaching. And the podcast I had before, the ADHD Women's Wellbeing podcast, was called The Ambitious Mum. And what's interesting is that you'll hear me talking on The Ambitious Mum all about this kind of polarity between having all this drive and all this like ambition and wanting to be busy and learn, but also being knackered and being prone to burnout. And speaking to my guests about it. And it was almost like I was looking for answers. Like, why is this? Like, why do I want to do all these things? Why do I have all these hobbies? Why can't I relax? And talking about the well-being behind all of that. So it was kind of like the prequel because I didn't understand. And then at the end of the series of The Ambitious Mum, I just got my diagnosis and I talked about it in the last 2 episodes. And that's when I had this kind of like epiphany of, let's finish that podcast and just go straight into talking about ADHD in women and well-being. And I genuinely thought no one would be interested. And I thought, this is very niche. I'm taking a risk here. And then, it just kind of like went from there because at the time, it wasn't this topical conversation. It really wasn't. I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. There was stigma. I didn't want to talk about it to anyone I knew. I felt like I needed a release, almost like with an anonymous release, because to talk about it to my friends and family. I was so embarrassed. And it took me so long, you know, to post about it on Instagram, post about it. And then I finally trickled out, spoke to family, spoke to friends. And it's only now 3 years later that I will talk about it openly and be like, yes, and really not have any shame. But that was a 3-year process. And that is because it's become more topical. And I have like loads of times when I've gone somewhere socially and people come up to me quietly and go, just so you know, I think I've got ADHD, or just so you know, my daughter's just been diagnosed. Yeah. It's always a whisper. It's never in a conversation. And they are carrying that burden of shame as well.
Yeah.
And so there's still a lot of work to be done.
Can I just backtrack? So are you saying, just in case I've got this wrong, are you saying that you went on to the podcast, which, as you say, it's very brave to do that at that time when people aren't knowing about it. So that's amazing for a start. But are you saying that you did that without speaking to your family?
So no, my family knew, my husband knew.
Right.
It took me a while to speak to my parents about it, if I'm honest, even though they were like, well, I was always the fine one. I was the coper. I was the quiet one. I was the capable one. I was the organised one. And my parents split up when I was young, sadly, due to the chaos that was going on in our family, which is very common, unfortunately. And they just kind of saw me as like head down. And I was the only one to get a degree. And so it came to them as a real shock. It's like, well, you haven't got ADHD. You're fine. It's your brothers that aren't fine. And so that was difficult. That was really difficult. My in-laws, whether they even understand still to this day, I don't think so.
Yeah.
So I really chose who I wanted to speak to and my community. And sometimes it was easier to speak to people online, and it was easier to speak to people who got it, as opposed to friends and family who were like, you're absolutely fine. Like,
exactly.
What are you talking about? Because it was so exhausting having to explain yourself over and over. And I say this to people, choose who you share your story with really carefully, because to get that invalidation is really hard. It's like,
and it's the last thing you need at that point, 100%. And the point is as well, like all of the people in our lives, like let's not pretend, let's not try and say that we're frauds, but there is masking, and there is unconscious masking as well, masking from ourselves. So it's like, I made the joke when we were on that other podcast, it's like, you want to ask my mum what I was like as a child? She doesn't know. Do you know what I mean? Like that's the reality of it. But sorry, go on.
No, and I was just going to say on the back of that is when you start to realise the extent of your masking, own up to it, that's a lot to deal with as well, because then you've got to, you as a person are changing, because you're having to now put more boundaries in place that you've maybe never been able to do before. You now trying to understand yourself, who you are, your identity, what you want, everything that comes with that. And so you will change as a person as you go through this new understanding of what ADHD is and how it's affected you. And so that in itself is really difficult.
That's that identity.
Yeah.
It's identity.
And if you don't have the right support around you, or you're unable to talk to people and not have the right people to talk to, or whatever it is, then that's made 10 times harder. So absolutely find the people that,
because also like what you're saying is like, sounds like, obviously I'm not saying I know you or what your personality or identity is, but from what you're saying that you experienced with your brothers, with your parents' breakup, etc., like hypervigilance, you had to cope, you had to keep your head down, there was no space for anything else, you know. So then you have to really look at yourself again and see like, we're picking apart our personalities here. It's a huge thing, and you need people who are going, you know, like we say, literally in the same boat as you to share that experience with.
Totally. I mean, that hypervigilance, it's been huge for me, and just understanding where my anxiety came from as well. You know, I used to think I was a worrier, neurotic, a bit like, you know, just chill, like, why are you worrying and future tripping all the time? And now I realize that anxiety, that overthinking, the ruminate, the catastrophizing is like massive. And interestingly, I just recorded an episode with Dr. Ned Halliwell.
I listened to that episode. It's really good.
Well, this is a new one. It's not out
another
yet.
one.
Because it's a new one coming out in a few weeks. And I said to him, like, thinking that he's sort of like the guru of ADHD and he knows everything. He's managed his ADHD. And I said, what is still the hardest part of your ADHD? And he said, I'm a worrier. and I don't know how to stop worrying. And I said, like, you understand the brain so well, you understand. He's like, it's still my biggest, downfall is the worrying and the catastrophizing. And I said, I totally relate to that. And he just says, never worry alone. That was his, and he said, well, I said, what do you mean? He goes, make sure you've got someone that you can externalize those worries to, so they can help you gain perspective and help you understand, like, where's that going? Like, what's that helping? And I'm thankfully, I'm really lucky that I have a husband who is very kind of, he's good at bringing me back to kind of like, well, really, is that going to happen? But it's very easy for us to just go off on that, like,
because as you ruminate, these
worry.
things expand and expand. Absolutely. What do you hang on, did we actually get there? Are you at acceptance?
Am I at acceptance?
Like in
Okay.
So what has undiagnosed ADHD cost you?
Listen, I'm going to be honest. I'm in a privileged situation here because I got a diagnosis privately. I've got a supportive partner. I'm in a situation where I feel like there is support in my family unit. What it's cost me is I had huge lack of self-belief and lack of self-esteem. And, while my kids were growing up and I was sort of tootling around in different jobs and careers, I was like, why can't I just do something? Why have everyone else has managed to like hold down a career? And so I had years like going to my husband, crying to him, saying, I don't know what's wrong with me. Why can't I just finish something? Why can't I stay interested in something? And so it cost me years of lack of self-belief and not being able to find something. And, the ADHD has been a blessing for me because I've created a business around it. And I have been able to find my audience and help the women, for me, my audience is women, help them, on their journey. But before, I didn't have the language and I couldn't articulate who I wanted to help or how I wanted to help because I didn't understand why I was who I was. So it was like operating with kind of no awareness or understanding about myself. I know it's really hard to explain, but it was that missing link. It was like the key. And I was like, oh shit. Okay. So I'm attracting the same people as me, but they don't know they've got ADHD. And I don't know I've got ADHD. And I don't even know how to help these people because we don't know what it is. So and then now I understand it so well. And I really relate and resonate. And I see me and my clients and me and all of that. And I'm no different. I'm maybe just a couple of steps ahead with awareness and, experience. And so I just feel like it cost me time. But on the flip side, I had very young kids and I don't know if I would have coped doing all of this while my kids were so young. I wouldn't have been able to do any of this. So now my kids are older, I have more time. So I don't know. I'm a big believer in serendipity as well and timing.
100%. 100%.
So when it's right, it's right.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. What you're saying, we both relate hard. Like really relate.
Very much so.
Yeah. So what has changed for you since diagnosis? Well, you've got a whole career, a whole business, everything.
Definitely my career, but also my confidence and knowing what I am capable of and when I really need to ask for help and not blaming myself and shaming myself for struggling with the things that I do. Instead of spending so much time and effort going, why can't I do that? Why is it so difficult? I'm like, right, who the hell can help me? Instagram stories, Facebook, like someone help me do this. So it's really changed everything. It's maybe be able to support my kids better. I spot ADHD in everyone now. Like whoever I'm talking to and they're like struggling and I'm like doing my little audit and checklist. So I'm able to, if they're willing to have the conversation, I have that with them. And yeah, I feel so grateful to have had that diagnosis and that awareness, even though it was 40. I see women who are only getting this in their 50s, 60s and 70s. So I'm super grateful. And now I actually really love my brain. Like I can see when I go off on tangents and I see when I'm like planning something and I think, that's not really going to work, is it? And I just kind of let my brain do what it needs to do. And then I have the awareness to pull back or to put timings on that or not to overexert myself. I think the awareness for me has been crucial.
That's wonderful.
Amazing. And so if you could implement change to the diagnostic process, what would it be?
And as in like the bog standard NHS, like if you could wave a magic wand now, how do we fix it?
I mean, it goes without saying that we wouldn't have the weight that we've got. We'd have maybe GPs who are able to diagnose or really help people there and then. I think that would be my biggest thing, is like removing all the pathways, all those kind of gatekeepers, and really help. Like, so a doctor, you walk into the doctor's surgery and you kind of give like 8 different ADHD traits. We're all going to be different for different people, but they have that checklist straight away and they go, this sounds like neurodivergent.
It seems so simple. It's just simplify it.
So when we came into this, that was my idea.
At the very
start. I was like, I want it to be that the GPs, like if anybody goes into anything for an appointment that could be mental health related or anything that could potentially be a comorbidity, they have a checklist. They're not going to do it before they come, probably not. There's clue 1. And then you sit in the waiting room and the person on the desk says, you have to fill this in before you come in. You sit there, the doctor goes, tick, 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 tick. I think you might be neurodivergent. It could actually be that simple. And I thought I was being crazy thinking that, but it is that simple, isn't it?
No, it is that simple. It's almost like the doctor has that in front of them. Like, are they talking about disordered eating? Are they talking about anxiety, sleep problems,
addiction,
addiction, exactly,
depression,
hormone problems? You know, for women. I mean, I had Laura Spence on my podcast. She's the ADHD midwife. She's fantastic.
Yeah, she's wonderful.
Yeah, and she, you know, we discussed if you are, you know, going through, you know, pregnancy, post-pregnancy, they should have a checklist, because postnatal depression is much more common in, you know, neurodivergent women. So there needs to be a simplified process that any healthcare profession, if you're seeing a woman struggling and it's a bit ambivalent, a bit ambiguous, it should be like, oh my God, there's potentially ADHD and or autism here. We need a pathway to send her to a specialist. And, you know, it's not that difficult to spot. It really isn't. It's just a few questions.
And then if
we can spot it in a second.
And if you rule that out quickly, then you can look at other things. But I don't understand why you wouldn't want to rule that out or get to that answer.
I was just going to throw this into the mix. Do we think that the stigma of stimulant medication and potentially the cost of it is a huge part in it?
Definitely.
The kind of war on drugs mentality, this is speed, blah, blah, blah,
I mean,
kind of mentality. I think so.
It's lack of education. It's lack of understanding. And I think you're right. You know, America, unfortunately, was popping Ritalin left, right and centre to kids back in the 90s. So it's actually had like a detrimental effect, because it's kind of like, well, every kid's on Ritalin in America. But it's like, well, not really. And it's not, you know, that's not just the only, you know, prescriptive drug that it could be offered. So I think it's just a lot of relearning and professionals just getting some training. You know, the psychiatrist said to me, in medical school, they got a half-an-hour lecture on ADHD. That was it.
I know.
And I spoke to another psychiatrist who is a binge eating anorexia specialist. And he said the lack of understanding of neurodivergence in this area is like mind-blowing. They just, it's not. And I was like, but there's a very high chance that most of your patients are neurodivergent. And he's like, well, it's not being spoken about.
We spoke to somebody who was talking a lot about, I can't think what the term is. Is it called gastric bypass surgery? Is that what it's called? And that actually, you know, potentially a lot of these people might need a different kind of help, or a different kind of help might have not made it get to that point, if you see what I mean.
It's just people, a lot of medical intervention is dealing with the aftermath of what potentially ADHD has caused. So
prevention rather than cure.
Get to the root cause. If you help someone with ADHD, rather than being like, oh, we'll just, you know, give you a gastric balloon, or
wait till crisis point.
Wait till crisis point and stick you under the knife and do surgery, which isn't actually, it might help short term.
Well, it might help long term, but it still just might not have been necessary.
Yeah, exactly.
Potentially.
Exactly.
You know, it still helped, but it could have perhaps been avoided and saved a person years of suffering.
And like we say, save lives, essentially.
Totally. It is saving lives. And it's like endocrinologists, female women's health specialists. They need to understand this. If people are coming and presenting with like endometriosis, PCOS, PMDD, really severe hormonal imbalances, there should be that like light bulb moment of, okay, let's ask her some other questions about other things and see if if I can connect the dots with no medical degree.
Exactly.
Apart from Grey's Anatomy, I've watched every episode of it.
Oh, well, you're fully qualified, love, 100%.
I am fully qualified. I've even got a mug that says that.
I love it.
Casualty, 24 hours in A&E. Like,
can you whistle the theme tune to Casualty? It's really fucking hard to do.
I'm not even going to attempt it.
We'll do it in the outro. I tell you, it's hard. What would you say your greatest ADHD struggle is? Like you've said, overthinking and sort of worrying. Is that it, do you think?
I would say finishing things,
Right.
and any admin, any tech, pulling things together. Thank God I've got an amazing assistant who basically I send a Voxer to, like a little voice note to, and I'm like, do you think you can do this, this, and this, and add this, and da da da? And then in about an hour, she's done something that I've created in my head, but from a tech perspective would never ever have happened. So I have the ideas and I have the creative thinking. I just can't implement it from like a practical perspective.
Yes.
And that, I think, for understanding that and then understanding what those blocks were and how I needed to get some help has like changed my life, literally changed my life.
That's
because
amazing.
I've been able to create a business now where I wouldn't have been able to create a business before, because it's just, I wouldn't have been able to finish a website. I wouldn't have been able to connect all the banking thing, like all of these things. But give me an idea, like the ADHD hormone series, which in my head I was like, visualize, it's like different people and we're talking about different things and bringing it together. And she's helped me do that. So I'm forever grateful for that. Yeah.
If you're finding this podcast helpful and you're in a position to do so, please join our Patreon peer support community via the link in the blurb of this episode. For unheard bonus and full interview video content and behind-the-scenes exclusives, including a next guest spoiler and first dibs and discounts on our handmade and ethically created merchandise and apparel, and live events tickets. Also blogs, vlogs, live community Zoom blethers, monthly advice from an ADHD coach, body doubling, and access to our Discord, filled with literally like-minded legends from all around the globe, including ourselves, who totally get it, who you can lean on, learn from, and blether with any time. Because the only people who know what it's like aboard the late ADHD diagnosis roller coaster are the other passengers.
We've created this platform in order to support ourselves financially, to be able to continue creating ADHD AF and for our podcast to remain ad-free. If you don't have the funds, there are other peer support platforms available. Check out the resources page on ADHDasfemales.com. If you can support us, in turn, you will receive the support of our community, a full circle of support for the leopard print army. We spent our entire lives feeling like aliens, only to discover there's a whole planet of us. So hop aboard the spaceship and join us at patreon.com/ADHDasfemales.
If you would like to support us without joining the community, you can make a donation via our Buy Me a Coffee page, buymeacoffee.com/ADHDasfemales.
Both of us and the entire ADHD AF community really, really appreciate your support.
We really do.
Speaking about comorbidities, what ADHD cocktail are you?
If you were a cocky tea, you got a bit of this and a bit of that. What's your comorbidities?
So I would say I'm inattentive, but I am restless. So I have to be, I'm using a standing desk now because I thought of sort of sitting, for a few hours. I have sort of constantly have to be busy.
Yeah.
I have to be busy. I find it really hard to sit unless I've got a really fabulous something to watch on TV. Busy. I like, I'm a bit claustrophobic. I've probably got an OCD in different capacities. Anxiety is a big one. Thankfully, disordered eating, no. Low mood, I'm prone to. My hormones have been all over the place, so that's been challenging. I see myself as one of the lucky ones, though, because I see ADHD as a spectrum and I see it can be so debilitating for many people. But I also recognise it's socioeconomic. So I've been able to have support. I've got a partner. Again, we see breakup very usual very common with ADHD. So I count my blessings in certain ways, and I see how difficult and challenging ADHD can be. But then on the flip side, I have people coming to me going, I feel like an imposter because I've been diagnosed with ADHD, but I'm holding down a job.
Yes.
I'm in a happy marriage,
and
things are relatively okay, apart from just not feeling right in myself. And so there's no right or wrong with ADHD. It's just how it presents to you. Some people would think my anxiety is debilitating. My husband says to me, I would hate to live inside your head because you just live in hypervigilant, catastrophizing disaster mode all the time. But I find ways to cope. He thinks it's like dreadful. So it's just, I think you say at the beginning, you said at the beginning, we're all copers and we just cope. But sometimes we can't cope when life throws massive curveballs at us. And that's when the ADHD, like menopause, divorce, death, grief, job loss, anything to do with that, that's when it's like hits us in the head.
You're only just keeping it on an even keel as it is. You can't take anymore
about it. Because that's how quick life throws curveballs at us.
And I think getting the ADHD diagnosis, I think a lot of people think it's like, oh, I'll get the diagnosis, I'll start medication and everything will be better.
I'll be better.
And this is, I'll put my hands up, and I thought I was one of those people, and I realised, oh no, I've still got so much to unlearn, to learn, to process, to understand, to change,
grieve, to forgive yourself forgive others for the
so much to work on, and you have to work, and it's not easy. It's difficult.
Work.
And it's not easy. So the only way out is through.
Yes,
and that's painful. That's hard.
It is hard,
but you have to.
So are we.
Yeah. But as you say, we are copers and we just keep pushing through. So
So how do you get your dopamine? What makes you happy?
So I have to move every day, like for sure an hour's walk I have to do. That's just a non-negotiable. Being around my kids, really good friendships, connection, probably work. My husband, music, cooking, that kind of thing. I kind of have I find thankfully I don't have an addictive personality. That's not part of my ADHD. So I'm not a thrill seeker in that respect, but I have I need my dopamine moving my body, like the restlessness. So if I don't move my body every day, oh my God, I'm not a good person to be around.
Yeah, the difference exercise makes is insane. I've completely fallen off the wagon for months and months and months, and I'm on day 2, and it's like, it does make a difference. Yeah. It does make a difference to my day. It's literally like, I was tired today and I woke up and I was like, do you want to have a good day or do you want to have a bad day? Get out the door, let's go.
Yeah.
It was literally that black and white. It's ADHD Awareness Month. What would you like the world to know? And that goes for people with ADHD and it goes for the wider world. What is a big message that you just want to shout for the rooftops for ADHD Awareness Month?
I think it's more common than you think. You probably know quite a lot of people with ADHD throughout your life. It looks completely different than you would think it does. The stigma needs to go, and learn, educate yourself, create awareness, and learn what it is and potentially how you can help yourself or others. I just look at this sort of like this old school mentality of, just pick yourself up and suppress and push away and sweep things into the carpet, or don't find a label, or just get on with it. Like all these different things, which has contributed to decades of mental health problems. And now we are only understanding what ADHD looks like. And I wonder if there's going to be more discoveries. I asked this to Dr. Natalia. What's going to be the future? And he just said, from a neuroscience perspective, we are understanding things, like new things now. So I reckon we're just at this precipice, and it's really not that uncommon. It really isn't. The amount of people that you could probably think about now who tick quite a few boxes, and you think, oh, that explains things.
Yes.
That now I understand. And they don't have to be, jobless and disorganized and loud and hyperactive. It's it's looking beneath the surface and really understanding, and let's just remove that stigma.
100%. And I
absolutely.
love what you said. It is about, you know, connecting and communicating and just being together rather than suppressing. And
It's the judgment.
Yes.
I can't bear the judgment, and I can't bear the ignorance. I get really angry about this, if like ignorant people making judgments and assumptions about something they don't know about. So it's kind of like, that's why I say curate who you want to speak to after your diagnosis, because it's so raw, it's so sensitive, and you don't want someone like giving you that invalidation and dismissal when you've gone through this whole process of diagnosis and understanding it. For me, that was the hardest part. It really was.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's it. The more we talk about it, the more we normalize it, the more people will understand, and it will just become a part of society that, you know, some people
it's known, it's understood,
Some
and
people have brains that work this way and some people have brains that work that way, and the whole of society will accept and support both of those types of brains.
100%.
And actually, I was just going to say, a massive thing for me would be education. Like, if I could do anything and click my fingers, it would be teachers from the outset being trained fully with neurodivergence from the very beginning. Because the amount of times I've gone into my kids' schools and said, this is what ADHD looks like in girls. Oh, really? Like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Nail biting, skin picking, looking out the window, like totally ignorant. And, you know, I'm not knocking teachers because I know it's a bloody hard job and I couldn't do it. But I just wish that training's there so they can just keep an eye and look at those girls and spot certain things and understand that from an early age, they may need different learning styles.
And they're not bad kids. They just need the correct support.
The academia for them at the beginning is how they make or break your self-esteem and your self-belief.
And I think I have to add to that as well, because I have a friend who's a teacher, and she was explaining to me that even when she can identify it, because she does know about it, she's not allowed to say. She's actually not allowed to intervene and say, that is fucked.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That is messed up.
It's really bad, right?
Wow.
So
I didn't know that.
It needs to change.
It really does. It really does.
Yeah.
So what is your win of the week?
Win of the week of getting here today. Genuinely, it's really like, I can't believe it's Thursday, and I can't believe that I've managed to like tick all my to-do list. We're here, and we're doing this. We booked this in so long ago, and neither one of us cancelled. So that's my win of the week. Just chatting to you girls. Amazing. I've loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Amazing.
Thank you so
much. And it wouldn't be an ADHDAF podcast without our
reschedule, being late, all the rest of it.
And without this last question, which is, what is the most ADHD thing you've done this week?
Got my daughter's school trip dates completely wrong. Kind of like booked in different schedules and realised I had to cancel loads of meetings because I booked those in. God, it's just too many. It's like every day. It's just, I couldn't even keep on top of it. But instead of the lambasting and the self-criticism that I used to have of like, what kind of mum are you? Like, who does this? Everyone else has got their shit together. It's literally like, it's okay. This is not your forte. That's why you use tech, reminders, alarms, planners, because you struggle with this. So I kind of just, as long as I'm not making anything catastrophic, like I've not left a kid waiting on the side of a road to be picked up, I feel like I'm okay. And that's the most important thing, because I just remember this one memory of my mum forgetting to pick me up, who's also got ADHD, and standing outside school and all the other kids had gone and I was left.
I can't even imagine. I had to pick up my nieces Friday evening after school, and I was in the middle of a meeting that overran slightly, and I was like, I'm going to have to go because I need to pick up my nieces, and I had to get across town, and I actually had chest pains with anxiety because I was like, if there's one thing that I need to not fuck up today, it's not leaving my nieces stood at the school wondering where their adult is, I was, it was horrible.
But that is exactly the point of why we do the most ADHD thing, is because it's about shame eradication.
Yeah.
And that is just so fantastic that that's how you see it. It's like, there is no shame in it. We all do these things. This is par for the course. It's the knock-on effect of the symptoms of this disorder, disability, condition, whatever you want to call it. So it's really, really fantastic that you've done that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Amazing. Well, it's been absolutely fantastic speaking to you,
It really
finally.
has. And we'll speak to
Yeah.
you again in a minute on your podcast.
Yay, can't wait.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How wonderful is Kate? We're so, so grateful to her for giving us her time and collaborating with us. And we just love speaking to her. And it just goes to show, you know, within the ADHD podcasting and content creation community, there are so many different pockets of us, each in our own different lanes, that we can all take different bits of information from and relate to in different ways. But we're all basically coming from the same angle, and we are all literally like-minded people, as we say. And it was just so, so lovely to speak to her. So thank you, Kate. And we cannot wait to hear the conversation that we had where we were interviewed on Kate's podcast, which will be out on Thursday, what day is it today? 26th of October, as part of our ADHD Awareness Month collaboration. So thank you again, Kate. I'm recording this from London the day after ADHDAF Day. So if you can hear my voice a little croaky, I am very tired. It's been a really, really eventful couple of days, as you'll know if you've been following along on socials. So yesterday was the second annual ADHD AF Day. And I honestly cannot say thank you enough to everybody who sent in pictures of them wearing leopard print, gave us their numbers for the start of the campaign, and to everybody who came along. And it was just such a wonderful day. Obviously, we shared the news that Dawn will be stepping down from the podcast. So yeah, that was obviously a very emotional time. And we just want to thank everybody for reaching out and sending all of their wonderful and supportive messages. We're just so, so grateful as ever for all of your support. And yeah, it's been really emotional and it's a big deal. It is the end of an era. It's not the end, but it's the end of an era. So thank you for everybody for your continued support. So that was obviously Sunday, and then Monday was ADHD AF Day, and I couldn't even get to Edinburgh. We had a massive storm, obviously, as many of you know, and the road was closed out of Aberdeen. So it almost looked like it wasn't going to happen. And for once, it wasn't actually some ADHD calamity that had messed up any travel plans or something that had gone wrong in that way. It was an actual storm, and it wasn't looking like I was going to get to Edinburgh at all. But luckily, Big and Ali McDonald saved the day, met halfway, and which just made me feel dreadful that, as ever, my inability to drive meant that I had to be ferried about the place. It was all very stressful and distressing. It was already a very emotional time. So just subplot, that's my most ADHD thing of this week, is just all the feels. So, so much emotion. As we said in that bonus Blether, if you've not had a listen yet, you can listen to the one before. It's called It's Always Darkest Before the Dawn, both because it's true, it's emotional, and obviously it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, because our Dawny is obviously departing. But yeah, it's been a lot of emotions. And yesterday morning, so actual ADHDAF Day, I woke up to already a fair few of you in leopard print showing your support for the day, and I started howling crying as soon as I opened my eyes. But it felt like Christmas morning, so it was like happy tears. It was just like, oh my gosh, you know, it's just a lot. There's a lot going on, and I'm not going to lie, I am absolutely exhausted, which I'm sure you can probably hear in my voice. But back to the day. This ADHDAF Day saw the launch of our Make It Count campaign. So this is a campaign that was concocted practically around a cauldron on the October full moon, between myself, Ali McDonald, and Canny Campaigns, our Kat Owen, head of activism. And the plan, or the campaign rather, is all about making this ADHD Awareness Month count, which is what we are dedicated to do. I'm going to share what I read from the campaign outside both Holyrood in the morning and Westminster in Parliament Square in the afternoon. I'm going to read it because my audio is kind of quite muffled because of all the background noise and sirens, particularly in Parliament Square. And then Ali will speak. And this is the recording from the day in which she talks about what the campaign is all about. And as we say, what happened yesterday was just the start of the campaign, which will go on through up until the general election. So yeah, there'll be more information about that very soon. But first of all, I just want to thank everybody who helped us yesterday, who stood in solidarity with our leopard print army. Thank you for sharing your locations, your numbers, i.e. how long you've been waiting, to help us collate the information that we need as part of the campaign, and to just know that we are all here to support each other and all backing the campaign. It means the absolute world, and it just completely tickles me and makes my life to see how many people we've managed to get wearing leopard print. Thank you very, very much. I'm going to give a massive trigger warning here. This really is, I'm just going to say that there are mentions of suicide, so it is triggering stuff. So, yeah. Okay, so I'm not going to do a word-for-word account of yesterday morning at Holyrood, but there is a video which I will share a link to in the blurb. But a group of us, including myself, Ali McDonald, Nicole Nadler, and Rachael and Lauren from our community, got together and we held up a sign which was made by Ali, which said, ADHD Awareness Month, make it count, because this is the cost of waiting. And then we had a black and white picture of a lady called Jodie. So unfortunately, we could only have Jodie there in photograph form because Jodie took her life on the NHS waiting list. And her life and the lives of countless others are the cost of waiting. Statistically speaking, 1 in 4 women with ADHD have attempted suicide. So every single number that we need, every single number on the list that should be in the data dashboard that the English Parliament promised is a person, a vulnerable person, a person in danger. And it is essential that people receive ADHD assessment and treatment quickly because they are in danger. And so we need the numbers. Scottish Parliament promised they were going to share a neurodiversity bill, which we are yet to hear from, and we have no timescale of how long we have to wait. English Parliament promised that they would share a data dashboard with how many people are on the waiting list, in which county, how long they're waiting for. We need these numbers. And the reasons why we need these numbers is because without them, we cannot start the process. This is the starting point in order to get people assessed. Mandatory waiting times, the legislation requires the numbers. There can be no proper funding to make any of this happen without those numbers. And as we say, each of those numbers is a person like Jodie. So then Ali and I went on to go to London to stand outside Parliament Square to share a statement from Jodie's mother. So I will now share that statement. Jodie's bereaved mother Jane has shared details of her late daughter Jodie's life in the hope that action will be taken to prevent others from suffering the same tragic fate. Jodie started diagnosis for ADHD and autism in May 2020. Mental health services forgot to assign a care person to offer support or even take forward the diagnostic process. I believe that Jodie not having a diagnosis and not understanding why she had the difficulties she did caused her severe mental health problems, leading her to take her own life in January 2021 at just 23 years old. When Jodie was 9 or 10, I knew something was causing her problems. This presented in her having what at the time I described as tantrums, anger outbursts towards her dad and I. I asked my GP for help and advice. Her response was, "Mrs. Welsham, you do not want to go down the Centre of Mental Health Services route. You need to discipline Jodie better." As a result, I believe Jodie's difficulties were my fault. I didn't understand or even suspect that Jodie could have ADHD and autism due to the lack of awareness in society and the lack of research and training of medical professionals. We need more awareness and understanding surrounding ADHD in girls, and that ADHD and autism present differently from the stereotypes and from person to person. With a diagnosis and support, Jodie and countless others would still be with us. The current waiting list for ADHD assessment is as long as 7 years in some parts of the UK. Statistics prove that undiagnosed and unmanaged ADHD kills. Ali MacDonald went on to say the following.
I think we all know that from our community and from lots of anecdotal stories that there's a massive crisis in ADHD diagnosis, assessment and care. Unfortunately, without the statistics that prove this fact, we're never going to get any change in the system. And hundreds, thousands of people will carry on languishing on waiting lists that we have no idea how long these waiting lists are. Which is why this ADHD Awareness Month, we're asking that the governments in the UK start to collate this data. We're aware from our Freedom of Information Act requests that nobody is collecting this information voluntarily, and that's why we need the government to get on board with collecting the data. By collecting the data, they can then implement waiting list targets and finances to meet the waiting list targets and improve services for everybody out there who is currently waiting. Many of whom, like Jodie said, have 5 to 10 years to wait on waiting lists if they want to be seen, and many of whom aren't even managing to get on a waiting list in the first place. It's about stopping more stories like Jodie's and getting change for everybody.
The NHS ADHD diagnosis process in the UK is absolutely dire, and a lot of people are waiting for undisclosed amount of times all over the UK. And it has to stop. These are people in need of help, and we need them to get the help that they need quickly. So we are dedicated to making this ADHD Awareness Month count. So thank you so much to everybody who came and joined us in Parliament Square at Westminster, which included the wonderful Jem, Kat, Tracy, Ruth, Kirsty, and of course Ali. So thank you so much. And thank you to our Clare at Summon 5 Photography, who held up the same sign made by Ali outside Welsh Parliament HQ on the same day. So thank you so much for doing that for us, Clare. We really, really appreciate it, and we love you. And thank you so much to absolutely all of you who took part in the second ADHDAF Day, which saw the launch of our Make It Count campaign. We cannot tell you how much it means to us. And this episode and ADHDAF Day, both last year and this year, prove that we can come together as a community and be stronger together. So thank you very much to everybody who has collaborated and supported us this month and throughout this ADHD Safari. Finally, I just want to say again, thank you so much to everybody whose kind words of support have been pouring in on all platforms since we shared that Dawn will be stepping down at the end of this month. It really means the absolute world to both of us, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. We've gone from this monumental piece of news straight into ADHDAF Day, and my feet haven't touched the ground. So as soon as I get a chance, I will be replying to you all. So thank you very much. And obviously that means that tomorrow, Wednesday, the 25th of October, is our last podcast recording as a duo. So this was always going to be the episode in which we recorded our monthly benefit for gold members in our Patreon community, the live Blether, which is usually about an hour and a half-ish, she says. So we always plan to record that to put it out as a special episode to conclude ADHD Awareness Month. But it's turned into an even more special episode, probably the most special episode we will ever record. Dawnie's last episode as co-host of ADHDAF. She will remain in the community, as we explained, so she isn't going anywhere. She's not leaving us. She's just stepping down as co-host. So do join us via the link in the blurb or link in bio on our socials to join our ADHDF community as a gold patron, as this month's benefit will be our final recording, and we hope to see you there tomorrow. I'll stop talking now. As you can hear, I'm absolutely bloody exhausted. Never been so exhausted, so emotional. It's all so much right now, but my heart is so full of gratitude for all of the support we've received these last couple of days. I really don't even have the words. So thank you so much to this wonderful community. I'm actually going to cry. No, I'm not going to cry. I'm so proud and grateful to be part of. And thank you again to Kate. Big love to you all.
ADHDs females, ADHDAF, ADHDs females, the podcast.
We did it for the acronym.